Hello plant friends, my name is Victoria and you're watching Plantastics. Today I'm going to be showing you the 3 different plants that I got for my birthday. So we're going to start with number 1. There's 1 Anthurium and there's 2 miniature orchids. So here in this beautiful cloche here, I have 2 of these and I just basically use them for rehabs or anything that's kind of like a propagation. But yeah, you can see that I have this chunk in here. And this is an Anthurium. I think it's the Silver Peru. But if you look here, it's got basically 1 leaf that's starting to come out. And you can see it. It's really very small in how it's growing because it's grown quite a bit since I've had it. And I've had it probably for like 3 or 4 days. So that is the Anthurium. Next we have this, it's literally called a Dorito. Doritos pulcherrima. Anyways, I got a refund for this one because it apparently was eaten by slugs. It did not look anything like the picture. But you can see there's this kind of like line here. There's lines all throughout. And the very tips of the roots are also, well, you can't see it, can you? The very tips of the roots are actually eaten away as well. And you can see that they kind of tried to, like, I guess make it better. They cut off this leaf here. It will make a full recovery and it will eventually go into this enclosure back here. But for now, it's just like this. And it's basically in a dome like that, but it's one of the black ones. Just sealed off. The advice that I got was basically to like repot it and make sure there aren't any slugs in here. I don't see any, and I've had it basically in a container in containment away from everybody else, and I've just been looking at it and trying to observe it, and I haven't seen any snails or slugs, but that doesn't mean that they're not, like, I guess they're still. So I'm going to completely repot it at some point. You can see that the new growth in the very middle, that leaf there, it seems to be pretty promising. It doesn't look super sickly. Next is one that everyone's familiar with. It is a Phalaenopsis orchid, and I have it basically in moss and cotton rope, and I basically just like wrap it around, and then what I'll do is I'll put it at the very top of this enclosure where it can get misted like once or twice a day, and I have fans that draw the air out, so it does get misted more frequently than you probably mist an orchid, but because the air is being drawn out, it's not sitting in water. This one is the Phalaenopsis parishii alba fragrance species, and they started growing it, I guess, in November of 2023. With these smaller orchids, a lot of the times they'll grow like little offshoots. So I have the 1 miniature orchid and it's done really well. I actually got it to bloom for me and it actually produced a teeny tiny little baby plant. So this one, obviously it's a miniature and you can kind of see it's obviously very small. I like the miniature orchids because I don't have a ton of space in this enclosure behind me. Miniature orchids are one of those things that if you have them, I highly suggest you get some kind of an enclosure that has some kind of a timer that's going to mist them and also have ventilation, because if you kind of just put them in something like, let's say like this, it's not going to have the ventilation that it needs, and I just honestly have seen people really struggle with those. Now people with like really large collections that seem to be doing really well, they have enclosures like the one behind me, but it's basically only orchids. I recently got snails in my enclosure somehow. I'm guessing it's some of the new plants that I purchased, and I have been catching them and basically like taking them out. So hopefully that's not gonna happen. So we, as in me and other people on a subreddit, allege that this is basically like slug damage. I have no idea. I didn't see slugs. It's alleged that slugs caused this. But in my enclosure, I know that I have snails because they love to eat the teeny tiny new little growth points on your root tips. So like this little part right here, when it's super light green and just super vulnerable and tender, snails and slugs love to eat that. It must be like the veal of an orchid. So these are the 3 things that I got. Another update is that I'm finally done with my exams, which is great. So that means I get to have this winter break before completing my next and final semester of school. And yeah, so I've got tons of African violets, propagations, and I repotted a large number of them. I have a bunch of little plantlets now with their own individual pots, and I also have the 2 trays that still are pretty full with propagations that just aren't ready to be separated and potted up yet. But yeah, so stay tuned for that, and I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.